Hudson.
Here.
Gregory. Henderson.
Here.
Nirenberg. Schroer. Wetton.
Quorum being established, we're going to go into hearing portion of the committee. We're going to go ahead and start with Senator Mosley's Senate Bill 967. So, Senator, please begin when you are ready.
Good morning, committee chair and members. Thank you for allowing me to have this hearing today. I am Senator Angela Mosley of the 13th Senatorial District. I will be presenting SB 967, and what this will do is this act will establish the Black History Education and Awareness Commission Act and creates a permanent state commission known as the Black History Education and Awareness Commission, which shall be housed in the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. The commission shall promote implementation of education and awareness programs relating to history, experiences, and achievements of Black people in Missouri and across the country. This bill was mirrored to the Holocaust Commission bill, so it's exactly like that, except it's for Black history. The purpose and the vision: this bill establishes the Black History Education and Awareness Commission to ensure Missouri students receive a full, accurate, and inclusive education about Black history, not as a separate history, but as an essential part of American history. We cannot understand who we are as a state or nation if we ignore the struggles, sacrifices, and achievements of African Americans that helped shape every institution and freedom we value today. This bill is not about guilt or grievance. It's about truth, awareness, and unity through education. Students who learn a complete version of history develop greater empathy, civic responsibility, and thinking skills. This will encourage teachers' training and professional development to ensure lessons are taught responsibly and respectfully. And I'll take any questions if anyone has any.
So, Black History Month has been Black History Month for 50 years. Initially, 100 years ago, I think this year, it was initially Black History Week. So, I guess what has been lacking in the past 100 years? I know there were a lot of differences and a lot of things that weren't taught, but given the demographics and the way things have changed currently in today's day and age, do you feel that Black History Month is inadequate and that the curriculum hasn't been adequate to date?
Even though we have Black History Month, Black history has not been taught in schools. Even when I was in school, I wasn't taught Black history. We were taught about history, but we never were taught the contributions from Black people. We never knew not just about slavery, but we also what achievements Black people brought to this country. What inventions we are using that Black people created, even to this day.
Okay. So, do you think? I mean, just looking at the commission, I mean, most commissions that I've seen are, around a 6, 7, 8, or about a 9-member board. I mean, but do you feel that 13 members is pretty extensive? And I saw the executive position was around $300,000 a year. Do you think that's, is there no voluntary basis to where we're not, adding a bunch of employees?
When I
and
filed
costs?
the bill, I told them to mirror it exactly how a Holocaust Commission is. So whatever the Holocaust Commission has, this is what this bill has.
Okay.
So
All right. Any?
I feel if the Holocaust Commission, whatever they received in Black history, should receive the same.
Okay. Any questions for the sponsor? Okay. Seeing none. Anyone to testify in favor? Please come forward. Please remember to fill out a witness form.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Deborah Foster Green. I am a professor emeritus, Lincoln University, U.S. History. Is there anything else you need to know about me? Okay. Chairman, you're correct that Black History Month has been recognized nationally since 1980. You are correct that Negro History Week started about 100 years ago, but in my more than 25 years at Lincoln University, no elementary and secondary candidate is required to take a Black History course. Only those students who are in social studies will ever take political science and U.S. history together. You can graduate from a university in the state of Missouri, and I don't think that Missouri is unique, and not even take a history course. You have to take history or political science. And if you have a degree, you know those two areas are totally different. In regards to whether or not there is a volunteer basis, people like me who spent years trying to get a degree really don't want to volunteer their professional time. The other thing is we've come a long way, and there are people who know Black history across the world, because in my Organization of American Historians, we have American historians all over Europe, all over Asia. They know our history better than we know our history, and they know all of our history. So if we are having an educated electorate, our electorate needs to draw on the positives, the struggles, and the strengths that we have. And one of those struggles and strengths that we have is that we should be able to look at each other critically and say, we're all in this together, and I understand where we have come from. Because if you know, none of this is done as black and white. We've always been in this together from the very beginning. And when I say the very beginning, I'm talking about the 1700s. The first person who ever said, this is wrong, slavery is wrong, was a white doctor. Okay? So the first person who said in 1909 what's happening in the United States when there were riots, and I'm not going to call them race riots because black people were not rioting against white people, that was the other way around, was a white woman. What's wrong? And as a result of that, a multi-racial commission that we now call the NAACP came about. So all of this has been hand in glove together. Unfortunately, over the past 50 years, we have not been advancing ourselves in understanding what's going on. My father-in-law, Lorenzo Johnston Green, was a pioneer in African American history, and it was his hope that by the 21st century, this would be, there would not be any need for this, because African American history would be so tied to telling the story of American history. And unfortunately, we're not there, and we don't want our kids to go forward. If you watch any of the social media, you know that we are marrying each other, and our kids need to know both sides of their history.
No, I totally agree with that. I think there's actually only one race, and that's the human race. And, you know, there's ethnicity and different backgrounds, and I think that's definitely true. I want to make sure that we're teaching correct, true history, no matter who it offends, you know, and I think that it needs to be done. Senator, proceed.
I want to thank both of you for bringing this bill forward. A couple weeks ago, I had a bill dealing with religion's impact in our history. And even today, as a 40-year-old man, I'm still learning stuff that I wasn't taught in school. And I had a talk with Tony the doorman yesterday, who had spent some time with Clarence Thomas when he was at the AG's office. And I started researching a little bit about Clarence Thomas. I had no idea that he was on a path to be a preacher. And what set him onto another path was the racism that he endured after MLK was assassinated. And I could spend all day talking about that. To, you know, tell another story, the NRA's founding and how it was linked to the racism and stopping the racism and allowing for Black Americans to protect themselves. Things that I learned outside of school. So whatever we can do to dig in and actually get the non-biased history so we don't repeat these horrific instances in our lifetimes and in American history, I firmly support. I want to thank you for crafting this bill and bringing it forward and testifying today. Thank you.
Any further questions? See none. Thank you for your testimony. Anyone else to testify in support? Please come forward. Senate Bill 967. And no, we will not do the 6-7 deal here in this committee. I said no.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Okay. All righty. Okay. Let's see. I didn't have anything prepared, but I can say this is so important. One of the things that I think is missing when we talk about Black history, if Black history is history, but one of the things that stands out to me, we don't talk about all of it and everything that it's included. It's humanity. What he said, it's about humanity. There are when Black history is taught, I don't think we talk enough about the role that whites played in freeing slaves and how they lived together and helped one another. I've heard it said time and time again that children feel bad when they learn about Black history, that parents are concerned that their children are only hearing the bad part about it. Then why not teach the good part about it? The good things that what abolitionists did, how they worked together. The Underground Railroad was not just Black people passing through, they had help. We did this together. And the only way we're going to come out of this is together. So that's something that, one of the main reasons I think Black history should be taught in its fullest. Now, coming up through school, for myself, it was taught in school. And we had debate teams. We learned from different teachers. It's all history. It's all relevant. And if we don't teach it in its fullest, in its entirety, we're going to stay stuck right where we are. We've got to stop and start understanding where we all came from and the role we all played. No matter where you stand today, on what side you stand, we all got here together. And the only way we're going to get out of it is to start to learn and understand each other's past. And we need to teach that to our children, because if we don't, guess what? We raise children with those same bad demons. And they've got to live in society. Society is not one color. It's multicolored. Multi-ethnicity. And we want our children to be well-rounded, all of them. They shouldn't, they should be able to do that and live together without the biases of adults. And that goes for all of us. And that's all I want to say.
Well, thank you for your testimony. I love the historian David Brattin. He has probably one of the largest, if anybody knows, he has an organization called Wall Builders, but he has one of the largest private collections of American history. And one thing he talks a lot about was in the early 1920s, black history was taught actually throughout our nation up until about the 1920s, and there was a movement to actually scrub history of black history. And I definitely think that we've got to bring it back to make sure that it's well-rounded, to see the positives that truly occurred, regardless of the color of the skin that really truly built this nation. So I totally agree with making sure that we're doing this right. So, any questions? Oh, thank you very much for your testimony. If you didn't fill out a witness form, please remember to fill out a witness form. You can leave it.
Okay.
Anyone else to testify in support? Please come forward. If you don't have a witness form, you can always fill it out and bring it back after during this committee.
Good morning. I'm Rose Bruce. I'm a retired educator, and I'll be quick. I'll be repeating some things that have been said, but they are important. That I do support this bill. I would also support, again, and I do have somewhat of a problem with black history. It's history. It's our citizens' history. So that being taught all year long, but if there's a week where it's going to be emphasized, that should happen. I want to talk about the self-esteem aspect of never seeing yourself in the history books, or always seeing yourself in the history books in a lesser form. And so that happens when all aspects of African American contributions are not discussed, negative and positive. And so again, I'm in support of it. When we have citizens and residents that have high self-esteem, it is better for the whole community. It's better for our nation. They contribute more. They will not be a drain on our society because they feel bad about themselves and they never accomplish anything. So this has far-reaching matters that it can have a positive effect on, to go on and make sure all people know what the history is of this country. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Proceed, Senator.
Just a comment. I know the chairman had mentioned there's only one race, a human race, and ma'am, I just wanted to applaud you because that's something that I've been saying for a while. I come from a diverse background, German, Irish, Scottish, and when it blends into American history, I always try to just say that's American history. Yes, here's what certain people contributed, here's what certain cultures contributed, and here's the melting pot that we are today. So I want to applaud you at saying something so common sense that yes, this may be African American history, black history, but it's all history.
Right.
And I think continuing these conversations of putting us in buckets is just going to continue separating us. So hopefully here in this legislature and future legislatures, we can do our best to bring us all together.
Right.
So thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you. Anyone else to testify in support? Okay, anyone to testify in opposition? Informational purposes only? Closing remarks, Senator?
Thank you all for giving me this opportunity, and hope to see this pass out.
Thank you very much. That will conclude the hearing. I'm going to make a motion that we move into executive executive session. I didn't see that she had left. Doggone it. She can leave her vote with me afterwards. Have a second. We're in executive session. I make a motion that we move to take up Senate Bill 1383. Have a second. I move to adopt the Senate Committee substitute for Senate Bill 1383. This is okay, and this is the pilot program from Senator Washington that we had. It's the committee substitute that she had presented and actually presented the bill on. So there's no changes. That's just adopting what she had put forth before the committee. So any discussion on that? Okay, seeing none. I make a motion that we voice vote for adopting the substitute. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. I now move that Senate Committee substitute for Senate Bill 1383 be do pass. Second. Any discussion? Okay. Seeing none, Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Brattin.
Aye.
Hudson. Aye. Gregory. Henderson. Nurnberg. Schroer. Weber.
All right. What was it? 6 ayes? Yeah, do it as you go. All right.
6.
Okay. 6 ayes and 0 no. The motion passes. All right. I make a motion that we bring up, take up Senate Bill 1653. I have a second. I move to adopt Senate Committee substitute for Senate Bill 1653 and 1194. I have a second. So what the substitute does, it rolls together Senator Brown and Senator Trent's bills on the letter grade for schools, but it also, in the new substitute, removes the potential funding mechanism that went along with it. And Senator Trent's here. I know we had just got this with the committee, so if does anybody have any questions, he's here he could potentially ask.
Not really a question, just a statement on this. I wasn't one to present it, but I have talked with Senator Trent about it. I will probably be a no today, but I'm not against the bill overall. People have heard me say it over and over. I don't think the MAP test to make the biggest part of your grade is the best exam to be used. If we did a benchmarking type test that's nationally normed at the end of the first quarter, so teachers could see it and say, "Oh, we got a lot of work to do here," and keep doing it along. But so I'm not going to go into details about that. But I don't mind the bill. I don't like the MAP test at all. So.
I understand. Any further discussion from the committee? All right, seeing none, I make a motion that this is a voice vote, to adopt the substitute. All those we have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. We've adopted the substitute. I move that Senate Committee substitute for Senate Bill 1653 and 1194 do pass. A second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Brattin.
Aye.
Hudson.
Aye.
Gregory. Henderson.
No.
Nurnberg. Schroer. Weber.
All right, by your vote of 4-2, the motion passes. Okay, next. All right. I make a motion that we take up Senate Bill 1404. Second. There's no substitute, so I move Senate Bill 1404 do pass. A second. And a second. And a third. Any discussion? Okay, see none. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Brattin.
Aye.
Hudson.
Aye.
Gregory. Henderson. Nurnberg. Schroer. Weber.
All right. By your vote of 6-0, the motion passes. I make a motion that we move out of executive session. Second. All right, we are back in the hearing portion, so we're going to go ahead and I'm going to turn it over to Senator Hudson, and I'm going to present my bill. Thank you.
Are we 16, 17? 17.
All right, at this time we're going to begin our hearing for Senate Bill 1617, sponsored by Senator Brattin. Senator, begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, Senator Rick Brattin, the 31st Senatorial District, bringing forth Senate Bill 1617. So this has to do with the new provision that was passed at the federal level, having to do with degrees and how the taxpayers subsidize degree programs that don't meet cut the mustard, I guess, so to speak, on whether or not they really, truly live up to the promises and expectations that these students have been sold. So the federal government passed, it's called the Federal Earnings Test, and it's a real simple test. So basically what it does is it will be a 3-year process, 3 consecutive years, and it has to meet 2 of the consecutive years, to where an undergrad degree has to, within that prospective job market, make more money than someone that actually just has a high school diploma in that career field. And if they don't make more money, $1 more than the guy that just has a high school diploma versus the one that just went and spent $39,000 a year or for their student loan debt on that degree, then it doesn't qualify to be subsidized for government subsidies for those loans. To me, this is common sense. I mean, if we're sending our youth, and there's almost $2 trillion in student loan in America today. I mean, just let that sink in, how much student loan debt that we're riddling students with these degrees. And then when they get out in the real world, they think that they're set up for success, when in reality, they didn't even have to go to school, and they could have been making more money than they actually are with a degree, and riddled with $39,000 per year in student loan debt, basically the size of a mortgage on their back. I think it's a huge disservice. So what this does is for those degrees that make less, and for those that are graduate degrees, if they're not making more than the bachelor degree that's in that same degree field, they would not qualify. So honestly, I mean, I hate to say that the federal government actually did something right and actually did, a good policy, but I think this is a really good policy. I know, believe me, it pains me to say this out loud, I promise. But I think it is a good program, that it's a good way, weights and measures to ensure that whatever we're subsidizing and investing money in is one that's going to actually pay off dividends for these students that are getting these loan programs. So that's the gist of the bill. I know there's more testimony that will kind of more get in the weeds of this program, but that's the gist of what this would do. Now, the fiscal note, I will hit on the fiscal note, because it is a savings, and it's almost a savings, an indictment, of these degree programs that are being. So the savings would be, first year, $14 million in savings. The second year, they're seeing $25 million in savings. Now, if you think that the average debt for a student is $39,000, so the first year, that's 363 students that would potentially be saved from this riddled debt, and the second year, 645 students that we potentially help save them from making a very costly mistake and going down a wrong career path that does nothing for them in a degree path. So just. I don't always agree with the fiscal note, but I at least wanted to point that out of like what this really, the real true tangible savings this could be having for students. Again, when we're knocking on the door of $2 trillion of student loan debt. So be happy to answer any questions. Again, we have professional testimony here as well.
Senator Henderson.
So the federal government did something right.
Mark it down. I said it and I testified on it. So.
I agree that, and I hate to admit this is a piece of legislation that was passed by our side of the aisle at the federal level, No Child Left Behind, and that this kind of goes way back to there, where we tried to convince all parents that if their kids didn't go to a 4-year university and get a 4-year degree, that they were being failures. I remember I was working in the field of education when we changed all of our curriculum to try to meet the needs of sending all the kids there, and all of a sudden we quit doing as much vocational education, which the pendulum has swung back. So I think you're exactly correct. Is kind of what I'm getting at. And we were sending them out, and some of them were getting degrees in philosophy where they couldn't earn a living, and then we end up with a large student loan debt. So I think you're exactly correct in what you're looking at here. But thank you for bringing this.
Yeah, no, I mean, you run into kids all the time, or adults that, they're working retail, and then they tell you their story, how they have literally $100,000 in student loan debt, and they can't survive, and what do they do? So yeah, it's been a huge disservice, but yeah.
Any other questions for the Senator? Senator Weber.
Quick question. So for a low-income or low-earning career, like say social work, does your bill calculate it because it's a low-earning career, or is it a calculation of if you're a social worker with a college degree versus if you're a social worker without a college degree?
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's within that career field. If you have a college degree versus if you have a high school diploma in that career field, if you're not making $1 more, then why are we subsidizing it?
So you're not comparing social workers to doctors, you're comparing...
Correct. Yeah, no.
Any other questions for the Senator? Seeing none. First person to testify in favor of Senate Bill 1617, please come forward. Welcome. Begin when you're ready.
Good morning. For the record, James Harris, representing FGA Action, to testify in support. As the bill sponsor mentioned, the federal government in H.R. 1's already kind of turned the spigot off for federal funds and loans. This does the state match. I think the senator from St. Francis County hit the nail on the head. Just the shift in policy, 30,000 foot from everyone had to have a college degree to now everyone needs a skill. What we're talking about here, it really just impacts less than 1% of programs, 48 out of 4,916. So just to kind of put things in perspective, and that's a little less than about 6,000 students currently. But we talk about, if a young person racks up all this debt, at the end of the day, that's hanging over their net. It's not helping them. Maybe better counseling, looking to other programs, maybe colleges shifting some of their programs will probably help young people be better prepared for the workforce. With that, happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for this witness? Senator Henderson.
Just one comment. I agree with you. I think it may not be shocking to people, but sometimes young people don't make the best decisions for their future when they're 17 and 18 years old, when they get in these degrees and then they get done with it and they're going, now how do I make a living? So I think, I think that happens all the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for being here. Thank you for testimony. Next witness in favor. Seeing none. Anyone here to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 1617? Seeing none. Anyone here? You opposition? Okay. Come forward. State your name. Begin when you're ready.
Paul Delasu. I'm here on behalf of the Associated Students of the University of Missouri. I want to start by saying that I think the federal bill actually does a great job. I'm one of those genius people who went and got a degree in film, racked up a bunch of student loan debt, and I think student loan debt is awful. I then went into the Navy and took care of my student loan debt, but I totally concur with getting rid of student loan debt. What I worry about is that this bill isn't going to help with that. The federal bill is going to help with that. The federal bill is going to give an incentive to not go into those programs. What we are concerned about is this is too big of a swing, all right? In as much as, number one, how do I put this? We're tying ourselves in Missouri to a federal number, right? And the federal government gives those loans so they should get to decide who gets them. But this tags us to markets in New York, it tags us to markets in California, and we don't necessarily know that those are going to be the career fields that Missouri needs or doesn't need. So I'm a bit concerned about that. In addition to that, we haven't seen where the federal bill goes. We can all agree that we think it's going to be a good idea, but we're just starting on this, and so immediately tagging that much of our funding for universities to an unchecked federal number seems a bit premature to me. Our biggest concern as the Associated Students of the University of Missouri is if we pull this money from those programs, they go away for all practical purposes. And I think that's the intention. And what we are concerned about is how does that reflect for the universities going forward? If in 3 years, for whatever reason, we find out that business students aren't making as much money, does that shut down the business school at the University of Missouri? Because it doesn't have enough funding for classrooms, it doesn't have enough funding for teachers, et cetera. I applaud the goal of this bill. I just think it's a bit much, a bit early, if that makes sense. I also have a colleague that wants to speak on behalf of, I'm not really an academic, I'm a retired Navy guy who's here doing this as part of my master's. So I have a lot of experience with senior government people coming up with ideas that sound great on paper and then not working so well in the field. I have a colleague who is an academic and wants to speak about how this will affect recruitment of professors. Thank you for your time.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for being here. Thank you for your testimony. Next witness to testify in opposition, please come forward. Welcome. State your name and begin when you're ready.
Good morning. My name is Grace Jardins, and I'm here on behalf of the Associated Students of the University of Missouri. But I really wanted to just speak to you guys today, not as just a policy advocate, but as a student who has chosen Missouri on purpose. I study here, I work here, I want to build my life and my career in the state. This bill tells students like myself that our future in Missouri will depend on whether our degree clears a federally defined earning threshold at a specific moment in time. Not on whether our work is rigorous, not on whether our work serves Missouri communities, but whether our median wages, measured only 4 years after completion, outperform a statistical benchmark. Many fields like education and research, the fields that I intend to do within the state, do not show their economic value 4 years after completion. Nursing programs often require additional licensure and experience before wages rise. Hard sciences like biology and physics are foundational pathways into medicine and research and advanced manufacturing. This bill has great ideas, and I agree, the federal thing really got one right, but this bill does create instability that affects students mid-degree because it requires annual updates based on federal determinations. So a program could be more fundable 1 year and less the next. So that uncertainty makes it harder for students in Missouri to plan. It makes it harder for educators to recruit or institutions to recruit high-quality educators. And for myself, who's trying to obtain a PhD in Missouri, it makes my academic journey very difficult to navigate. I want to stay in Missouri. I want to work in Missouri. I want to contribute to Missouri's economy and our civic life. This is a great state. I think this bill has really good intentions, but it does create uncertainty for students within the Missouri public higher education and for the thousands of students that are going to come after us. So for those reasons, and on behalf of the students of the UM system, I strongly urge the committee to oppose Senate Bill 1617.
Any questions for this witness from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for being here. Thank you for your testimony. Anyone else here to testify in opposition? Seeing none. Anyone here to testify for informational purposes only? Please come forward. Begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Paul Wagner, representing the Council on Public Higher Education. We don't have any particular problems with this bill. Our analysis shows that none of our programs would fall under this threshold, so that it wouldn't impact any of the academic degree programs that we offer. That's generally true for a bachelor's degree nationwide. The study that I saw showed that 0.8% of bachelor degrees nationwide would fail that test. I also State Technical College is also part of our group, and even though they only offer the AAS degree, their programs as well all exceed the threshold in Missouri. And the only word of caution I would give you as this goes forward is that we are just a little bit over a year away from this would have been a big problem for us when our state teacher minimum salary was $25,000. It would have been especially a big problem for our schools that put a lot of our teaching graduates into rural areas. Thankfully, that was just raised to $40,000, but if this bill would have been in effect when the statutory state teacher minimum salary was $25,000, we would be in a position we probably would have had to close our education programs because we can't run those without the support that the General Assembly gives us. I just give you some caution that the options available to schools under the provisions of this bill are pretty limited in terms of what to do about a program that doesn't meet the threshold. But we do not have any now. Hopefully, we never will. I agree with those in support that I think this is a good concept and it's a good protection for students to know to give them some more information in terms of what they can expect to earn in particular degrees. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the committee for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for being here. Thank you for your testimony. Friendly reminder for those that have testified, make sure that you have a witness form filled out. Anyone else to testify for informational purposes only, come forward. Welcome. Begin when you're ready.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Katie Gamble here on behalf of the independent colleges and universities of Missouri. One, the bill doesn't impact us all that much because the only piece that would impact our institutions is the financial aid piece. And two, as Paul stated, I don't know that we're going to have many, if any, programs fall under it. The challenge is that, it goes into effect, I think it's July 1 is the first year. The programs have to fail 2 years within a 3-year period. So it's just kind of an unknown for us right now. And so mainly just wanted to mention some things that we've been grappling with the federal law as you look at this legislation. There's kind of two definitions in the federal law. There's a failing program, which is what a program meets for one of the years, and then it's once it misses those 2 years of the 3, it becomes the low earning program, which I think is the definition that we're looking for here, but just had a question on that. The Department of Education put out some good PowerPoints on programs they think are gonna fail. They have an estimated 6% of programs, but I will say a lot of those are certificate programs, which certificates are not currently included in the bill. So that'll probably lower the number here that we're seeing in Missouri. The highest ranking program that the department sees is religion and religious studies. They estimate that those are going to fail at about a 53% rate. So there's just some interesting information. Sometimes it's not always the programs that you think, because there are programs that we want people to go into, but that aren't always the highest earning. I think someone else mentioned, but just always looking at, if the federal law changed, does that change our law, or does our law tie to what it currently stands? And I think everyone else kind of covered other things that we're looking at. Oh, there is an interesting piece. So for schools in Missouri that are primarily taking Missouri students, the data that they're being compared against is Missouri high schoolers. It does sort of skew those numbers towards urban areas where you're maybe making more money versus your rural students who might go to a rural school and stay in rural areas, who might be making a really good income for where they're at, but maybe it's different from their urban counterparts just because of where they live. And so there is some skewing in the data there. But again, until we kind of see what implementation looks like, we don't really know what kind of impact that might have. So those are just some things that we've been thinking about on the federal level that I thought I'd share.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for being here. Thank you for testimony. Anyone else to testify for informational purposes only? Seeing none, Senator, do you have any closing remarks?
Yeah, I would like to say that, so I was enlisted in the Marine Corps. I was not an officer, so I understand being dictated with some ridiculous rules. But this is not prohibiting any degree program from being offered from a university. This is just ensuring that if you're going to take these, you know, going eyes wide open into what you're getting into. And this is just establishing that equilibrium that I don't believe has been there from the onset and for many generations. So look forward to working with the committee, and thank you for hearing me, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. That will conclude our hearing for Senate Bill 1617.
All right, thank you. I apologize. So I'm going to jump back to Senator Mosley's. So we had some fantastic testimony that was, unfortunately showed up late, but we would love to get your testimony. You drove here and would love to get your testimony. So if you could, please remember to fill out a witness form, and the floor is yours. Proceed.
Thank you. She's a high school student that came up, so I wanted to make sure she got a chance to speak.
Good morning. My name is Karen McDowell, a senior at Marquette High School. Growing up, I've spent most of my life in spaces where I was the only one that looked at me. Whether it was clubs, sports, and even classes, I stuck out no matter what. But what came with constantly being the only African American girl came with little to no representation, especially throughout the classroom. In the classroom, I spent most of my time learning and having it ingrained in my head from a young age that we need to embrace each and everyone's culture and how important it is to educate ourselves. Even spending weeks by weeks mastering and learning each one through quizzes, tests, and projects, where we would present what we would learn throughout that unit. Throughout this, I got to see those whose cultures and histories talked about shine as they were given the privilege to be celebrated, even having classmates ask questions, flocking to learn more. However, the moment it was time to learn about African American culture, it was immediately a taboo topic. No one was eager to ask questions, no one celebrated the true beauty of my culture, there was no light for me to shine in. This unit of Black history was viewed as a hump that we needed to get over so our class could learn about something more fun. Spending no more than a week, we would learn about the same three African American figures, Harriet Tubman, Rosa Parks, and Martin Luther King. They were the easiest and simplest to talk about, as even if they didn't go too much into detail, they could write it out as impactful without being too historically accurate and well thought out, leaving everyone bored and yawning, with no room for any other African American figures. However, if we were lucky enough to be able to do a project, I would be the #1 person everyone wanted to partner up with, not because they wanted to get to know me, but because of the lack of any formality and thoroughness. I was seen as the #1 person that could take my peers to an A, only because I was expected to know what I was doing based off of the color of my skin. However, when Black History Month came around every February, there was little to none representation or celebration. Treated as just a month, Black History Month seemingly was swept underneath the rug, with little to no mention that Black History Month had even arrived. There was no decorations, classroom discussions, or even a simple fun fact shared about my month. The only thing was met with hearts red, pink, and white for Valentine's Day, which was set to approach, making me wonder if Valentine's Day is more important than the beautiful, rich, diverse culture that was supposed to be proudly celebrated. By creating the Black History Education Awareness Commission Act, it represents and symbolizes an important step towards strengthening Missouri education within the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, by ensuring Black history is not treated as optional or occasional, but structured, formally supported, and constantly taught in schools, creating a permanent structure that is dedicated to enhancing and educating about history, experiences, and the achievements of African Americans in Missouri and throughout the United States. This structure ensures that Black history is a lasting, meaningful component in the state's educational framework. The designation of the first week of February as Black History Week ensures that schools across Missouri focus and dedicate time to important, vital lessons benefiting all students by providing a complete and accurate understanding of Black history, as learning about slavery, segregation, civil rights activism, and the contributions of Black scientists, artists, educations, and political leaders will help students develop and the contributions will help develop a broadened perspective on social and political systems and ensure a long-term impactful rather than a temporary initiative. The instructions during a week determined by each district provides and promotes consistency, but also allows for flexibility in the implications. Further, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education's responsibility to develop a curricular framework, conduct a pilot program, and provide professional development for teachers allows for the prioritization of quality instructions while involving leaders such as the president of Harris Stowe University and representatives from civil rights and Black professional organizations to help ensure that knowledgeable voices guide the process. Passing this legislation would send a clear message that Missouri values an accurate, inclusive educational history, promoting inclusion, strengthening historical understanding, and ensuring thoughtful implications, and also encouraging unity. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Do you have any questions? All right, seeing none, thank you very much for coming down and testifying. You did a fantastic job.
Thank you.
All right. I believe that will conclude the hearing. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move into Senate Bill 1121. Senator Trent, Senator Carter had to cancel her presentation, so this will be the final bill of the hearing. Proceed, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Curtis Trent, representing Senate District 20. Basically, two components in this legislation. One is the increase in the Bright Flight funding, and what that would do is take it from $2,000 to full tuition. We use the same eligibility criteria, and of course, is subject to appropriation. The second part is the what's called the Missouri Higher Education Funding Policy Prioritization Act, or performance funding, and that is basically directs the public institutions of higher education along with the higher education board to develop a framework for performance funding for the state, and it has a variety of criteria here that are specified in the act that would be used as a criteria for the basis of this new policy. But the goal being that we more closely align the money that we're spending in higher education with the outcomes that we want to see, particularly in degrees that are going to be both beneficial to the economy and that are going to be most beneficial to the student from an economic standpoint. And you know, if the state is going to expend a tremendous amount of money on higher education, as it does, then it makes sense for that to be linked to the economic performance of the state when the state is subsidizing it. Of course, you know, this will not prevent students from getting any kind of education that they want. But if you would like the metaphorical degree in basket weaving, it would be suggested that that would be something that you know, is not in the interest of the state to subsidize, and that's the thing that students should be pursuing on their own dime if that's what they want to pursue. Even if the state continues to make those kind of degrees available, that's not where the emphasis would be at, and that's not where the funding would skew toward. And of course, then we also look to like the full outcome of the university in terms of academic performance, and we want to focus the funding on the types of programs and types of policies that would yield the highest results for students across the board in a variety of different degrees. Be happy to answer any questions.
You know, Senator, I don't know if you're aware of, do you know John Stossel? Have you ever seen his, he does some pretty hard-hitting reporting and...
Yeah, it's kind of a blast from the past, but I do remember John Stossel.
Yeah, so, but he did a story, and it's actually on Mizzou, and it's been years ago, but I highly recommend people watch that, because he was explaining the out-of-control costs associated with higher education, and it was really like cringe worthy of the reporting he did of, we're not, and I forget who it was. It was an official saying that we're no longer focusing on reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's the 4 R's now: reading, writing, arithmetic, and recreation. And then they displayed like the lazy river and the rock walls and all the saunas and the massage parlors and things like that. And then he goes on for the enormous costs to the taxpayer. So I think this is, it's not an attack. I'm not attacking, but at the same time, I mean, we have to be, realists, and we have to adopt policies that make sure that, we're actually serving and educating, and not just, not just going down these paths that are a complete waste of money. So I appreciate bills like this.
Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that anytime you have a third-party payer system, whether it's in education or healthcare or anything else, you have to have a lot more guardrails around how that money is being spent, or else you're going to see costs rise to meet whatever third-party payer money is available, and you're going to see a lot of waste creep into that system. And unfortunately, that has been the result in a number of different areas of the economy in our country.
Well, and then the billions of dollars. I mean, you would think that the impetus behind that is to, hopefully offset and bring those costs down. But when we continue to increase the state funding, there seems to be nothing go down, with those costs, and so I totally agree with you, and thank you for this bill. Any questions? Senator, proceed.
Good morning, Senator.
Good morning.
I was taking a look at your fiscal note, and did you have some time to peruse that?
I have all the time the committee would like.
Do you have the fiscal note in front of you?
I do.
Okay. So, obviously, I'm just going to set the bright flight stuff away for now, or set it aside for now, just because that's a hefty fiscal note in and of itself. Let's talk specifically about the funding equity. The report from 2023 discusses funding equity extensively, and there's been a lot of talk about the need to be able to inject money at the front end to make colleges whole. So what is your understanding of what would be needed?
What page of fiscal note are you
Well, I'm
referring
jumping
to?
around a little bit. I'm sorry. I decided I'm going to leave I was just looking at Bright Flight originally, and then that's so much to get into. And as you said, it would be subject to appropriations, and I don't know what we're currently appropriating for Bright Flight, but obviously I don't even know if we did the full 2,000 last year. I think we did for the first time in a couple of years. So let's put that aside for now. Can we just talk about the if the General Assembly were to adopt this new funding model, what would we need to inject at the beginning in order to make schools whole?
So I think as the language is drafted right now, it would be around $270 million. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily a have-to type of policy. We could just begin doing it without a fresh injection of cash and just do the realignment directly.
And if we did the realignment directly without that, what would happen to the universities?
Well, I think they'd perform better.
Well, no, if we weren't to inject that money, what would happen to and I guess we'll be able to hear from some of the universities, hopefully some of them are here with us, but probably some pretty grave concerns from some of them.
Well, I suspect they would have to refocus their efforts on again, they would perform better because they would refocus their efforts on the degrees and the departments that are adding most value to the economy, which is the behavior that we want to see.
Well, at the same time, we have dire shortages in fields like education and healthcare and degrees that don't always yield a ton of money for those schools, but are vitally important for the success and well-being of our state. Wouldn't you agree? Education.
Well, I think there's some kind of mismatch is occurring if you have a degree that doesn't yield money for the university, but yet is critically needed for the economy. The degrees that are critically needed for the economy should be the hottest degrees at the university and should be yielding more revenue to the university for training those individuals. And so if that's not the case, then I would submit that's part of the problem.
Okay, let's talk about this formula. How often would the formula be adjusted, reevaluated?
I mean, I think we give a fairly considerable amount of discretion to the higher board of education to implement the program.
Okay, how would this impact the current funding for community colleges?
So the bill contemplates, and we'll have to go back to the bill text here, contemplates putting the community colleges, let me find the exact citation for you. So it's subsection D in Part 2 of 1541. Includes process for the allocation of the core appropriations to public four-year institutions, higher education, public community colleges, as that term is defined.
But again, how will this affect the current funding formula that is currently used by community colleges? What would be the net impact?
Well, again, we have established principles that the board is to develop the program based on, and then those principles would that program that's developed would be applied to the departments to the schools, to higher education institutions. So until that program is developed, I don't know that we can say with exact specificity what the impact would be. We just simply don't know enough yet.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone, can I get a show of hands to testify in support? Okay. Testify against? Okay. All right. Testimony in favor, please come forward. Please remember to fill out a witness form. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Leah Strid. I'm the Director of External Relations for the Missouri Department of Higher Education and Workforce Development. I'm here to testify today in support of Senate Bill 1121. The existing funding model that Missouri uses is a base plus model. So that means that we apply the same percentage change to the core appropriations for all public institutions. Using this model does not acknowledge when institutions have increases or decreases in students in different degree programs. It doesn't acknowledge when they're doing a great job in a particular area, and it doesn't allow us to give the institutions that nimbleness to meet what Missouri's ongoing workforce needs are. We've been using this base plus approach since 1992, and obviously a lot of things have changed since then. Several years ago, the legislature appropriated some funding to conduct a study on performance-based funding. That study was done, and then we have also received a lot of input from the institutions to adapt that study to make sure that it works for Missouri's institutions and Missouri's economy. More than half of the states currently use metrics in funding allocations, and 31 states use performance-based approaches to align those activities to state needs. So an updated metric-driven core appropriation that would include a performance component provides policymakers the opportunity to better see the impact of the state's investments on each campus, regardless of economic conditions. I know that the committee has a lot to do today, so I don't want to talk too long on this, but we are giving a presentation on performance-based funding to the Joint Committee on Education this Thursday at noon. It will go into a lot more depth, and there'll be the opportunity to answer some questions on that. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions that you might have today.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none. Thank you very much. Anyone else to testify in support, please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm Brian Milner. I'm president of the Missouri Community College Association. We also want to go on record in support of Senate Bill 1121. Excuse me, both components of this legislation appear to try to inject some funding and some stability into funding for our institutions and for students. I'm going to leave the Bright Flight piece alone. It doesn't impact community college students as much as the performance funding piece. I'd like to sort of focus on that just for a second and say we've been a part of a lot of conversations with the department and the process with NCHEMS in 2023. And as Leah said, there are a lot of states that have some metrics of performance funding baked into statute that determine how institutions are funded. And we believe that if the state prioritizes workforce and effectiveness and efficiency, that the community colleges would be probably better resourced than we are currently. So we would like to be a partner with the state and the department in continuing to look at how we could improve on that process.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Any
thank you.
questions? See none. Thank you. Anyone else to testify in support? Okay, see none. Oh, 4? Okay.
Takes me a long time to get up sometimes. Thanks, Cindy. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Paul Wagner, representing the Council on Public Higher Education. So I first wanted to talk about the Bright Flight piece. I really appreciate Senator Trent bringing this up. I know this will be impossible for you to believe, but I was a Bright Flight scholar way back at the very beginning of when the program was fairly new, and that $2,000 was really nice back in 1980. But it doesn't go nearly as far today. And as I talked to Senator Trent about this yesterday, and there are a lot of other states, especially states to our south and east, who have made an affirmative decision to aggressively poach the brightest kids from other states. And Missouri has been a consistent victim of that for several years. And the way that their institutions are funded and the way that they do their scholarships, it's very difficult for Missouri to compete in that space. And the Bright Flight is a program that was designed by Missouri to address that problem, and it simply hasn't kept pace with the award amount. So we really appreciate Senator Trent bringing that forward and really encourage the committee to move that piece of the bill forward. In terms of the other piece of the bill, we are in favor of working on some kind of funding model, and we are in favor of having some performance funding. First of all, there's already a performance funding statute in place that's available to appropriators if they wanted to use performance funding. I did share with Senator Trent some proposed changes to the language in that section of the bill that we would very much like to see, and I think they would be consistent kind of with what we've heard so far today. We think there needs to be some more flexibility built into that process. This bill very specifically mentions that the funding model must be based on that 2023 NCHEMS study. I've got very weak support in my group for that study. We've seen the report. We have the spreadsheet that came along with that report. Given the discussion today, I would specifically draw your attention on page 7 to line 28, where it specifies that this process must use a cost-based approach to funding. And that's what that report does. It is the vast majority of it. It's based on what does it cost an institution to deliver X credit hour to X type of student. It doesn't make any distinction between, is this something that's a high priority for Missouri, or is it the proverbial basket weaving? It's just how much does it cost for the institution to deliver that program, and that's what drives the money. So I think having this kind of specificity in the bill must be based on that NCHEMS report, must be cost-based. I think that really limits our options in terms of designing something that's best for Missouri. So I've shared those suggested changes with Representative Trent, and if you are going to move forward with that part of the bill, I'd really encourage you to strongly consider those changes that we've offered. With that, I'll be happy to stop and take any questions.
Now, you said way back in the 1900s you had, you qualified for the Bright Flights. Now, what was the, I guess, the annual tuition at that particular time? But what, I mean, because I'm trying to think through how the real true impact it probably had on your pocketbook of receiving a scholarship like that to what, I mean, would it be peanuts today?
I went to college. It's not called that anymore. That's how long ago. I went to Northeast Missouri State in Kirksville, and it was kind of known at the time as one of the, and it still is. I mean, it's on the more affordable side. It was much more so then than now in terms of on the affordable side. I would say I don't really know what.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, that's
I mean,
okay.
I just was kind of wondering
I may have shaken the Etch-a-Sketch on that one, but it was probably in the 4,000 to 5,000 range. I don't know, remember, because like, you know, you live on campus and you buy books, and you know it just is one. It feels like just one big bill. But I would just remember that $2,000 was really just $1,000 a semester. Like really made a big difference.
Well, because I just typed into AI. No, I hate fallen susceptible, but AI in the mid 1980s. From then to today, we've seen an increased cost in tuition and so on and so forth of 500% increase. I mean, that's substantially higher than what inflation, allots for. So,
well, I know a lot of people look, when you Google the AI thing, that's probably like a nationwide figure.
Okay.
In Missouri, it's much lower because for a big portion of that time, there was a statutory limit on tuition increases, and that was tied to CPI. And for a long period of time, their CPI very low. So I've seen that statistic. I used Senator Schmidt and I talked about that statistic on several occasions, but it's very different for Missouri four-year institutions because we had that statutory limit in place for so long.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Proceed.
Paul, one of the things you mentioned was that your organization has weak support for that 2023 study. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, I think that one of the policy priorities that we always have when we come to the General Assembly is that every institution needs at least an inflationary increase just to keep up with mandatory costs that are unavoidable. So things like we're all in the Mosier's retirement system. Our Mosier's cost is not picked up in House Bill 5 like it is for other state agencies. So we've got to come up with new money every year to fund Mosier's in our utility bills and just whatever what it takes to keep buildings up and running and annual maintenance and the results, the spreadsheet that came with that report, which is the last version that we've seen. There are several institutions that it basically calls for them to either get their core cut or to be, they're basically signing up to never receive another dollar of core funding as long as can be. And I can see where there might be some circumstances where that would be appropriate, given, okay, let me just preface all of this by saying all of this kind of has some deck chairs on the Titanic vibe to it, given the real budget situation that we're going to be facing. Whether this bill passes or not, there's a reality out there that we're all going to be dealing with. But setting that aside for the moment, this funding model, as was given to us through the NCHEMS report and the spreadsheet they delivered, there's several institutions, not only in Kofi, also a couple of community colleges, where it just said, the state is overfunding you, that your state funding is too high, therefore you either need to be cut or you're just not going to get increases. And let me finish, I have one more part to that. It does look at all revenues, though. It has an expectation of what your tuition revenue should be and what your state revenue should be. So I'll use Truman State for example. Truman State is one of the schools that says you are overfunded by the state by about $6 million. So you are going to have $6 million removed. However, they're $9 million short on the tuition side. So even though looking at all revenues, they're underfunded by $3 million, the model still says we need to take $6 million away from you. And when you see results like that, everyone's like, now hold on, are we sure that this is the model that we want to base everything on? Maybe we need to slow down put some flexibility in here and give this process some more options rather than just sticking to this one.
Okay, very helpful. Thank you, Paul. And I would love to follow up with you offline.
Happy to visit
too,
with you.
on those
Yeah.
proposed changes. Thank you.
Thanks for your testimony.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Senator.
Anyone else testify in support? Okay, seeing none. Anyone to testify in opposition? Okay, going once, going twice. Informational purposes only. All right, wow. There you go. Senator, do you have any closing remarks?
No, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the committee's thoughts on this and consideration, and happy to work with folks who have testified to try to improve the bill.
Thank you, Senator. That will conclude the hearing, and I will make a motion that we adjourn the committee. Thank you. We are adjourned.